What are your thoughts? Is the U.S. going to get militarily involved in this conflict?
Thanks very much for having me. Evidently, that's the question all analysts and observers are asking themselves at this moment. What I can tell you is that at Control Risks, where our analysis of U.S. intent to become involved has shifted quite a bit over the past few days. We used to assess that the White House and Trump in particular were particularly concerned about keeping a non-interventionist approach in policy and keeping that deal-maker ethos. But we have significantly raised our probability of the U.S. becoming actively involved. There could be different manners in which it could become involved, but some higher level of offensive involvement does seem increasingly plausible going forward.
And if it does go forward, how unprecedented would that be?
Truly unprecedented. It's a word that has been used over and over again in the past few days, and it feels like it's appropriate each time. We've seen the region essentially reaching levels of tensions that hadn't been seen in decades, probably, and U.S. involvement directly in the conflict would undoubtedly shift the balance of power at the geopolitical level for the region for the decades to come.
Iran has said it would retaliate against U.S. military action if any were to happen. How exactly might that play out?
This is something that we're keeping particularly close tabs on at Control Risks. It's Iran's most effective response in terms of trying to rein in Israel, in terms of trying to convince the US to back down, would probably be expanding the scope of targeting. And should US bases located in the region be involved in such targeting, which they most certainly would be, then you could imagine the Iran starting to strike US bases in the region. Those strikes would likely be targeted, precise, but that would certainly indicate quite a widening of the conflict. And on top of that, you could start seeing Iranian efforts to impact energy prices, cause more of a global consequences for de-escalation in response to de-escalation, and then that could play out with transit of tankers in the Gulf, for instance.
Indeed. And of course, the real key question is here, as we're now in this seventh day of this growing conflict, how far is each side truly willing to go?
So you have quite a few parties involved at this stage. The two main ones at this moment are Israel and Iran, and I think it's worth considering Iran's perspective first in this respect, and from Israel's perspective first, and from Israeli perspectives, key goals that need to be achieved before any sort of de-escalation can even be considered will include a very, very significant degradation of Iran's offensive capabilities, and especially its ballistic missile program, as well as guarantees that the nuclear program has been set back at least several years. And so for that reason, we do assess Israel to keep on targeting Iran for at least the next few weeks, most likely. In terms of the other actors, it largely depends on what the US will decide in the next couple of days. In the event of a US military involvement, then we do see Iran as increasingly likely to expand the conflict and go with a last-ditch attempt at reestablishing deterrence and pushing where it hurts, and that is oil prices, especially considering that many Trump voters polled recently have indicated that they weren't particularly in favor of increased involvement in the conflict. So that might be one avenue for Iran to respond.
Victor, thank you for that. That's Victor Tricaud speaking to me from London.